What's up, Sterile Processing Universe? It's Hank Balch back in studio for this Big Data Now You Know series with Kyle Louie, and we have gone to all kinds of data points under the sun, but we're going to wrap up this little series on the topic of productivity in sterile processing and in perioperative services. And you know, people kind of treat productivity, Kyle, like it's a dirty word sometimes. It's a really loaded term, but it's a really important term. The example that I like to use for folks is, hey, quality, we want to get it right for every patient, and productivity means that we can do it for every patient. For the second cases, the third cases, the fourth cases, everybody deserves that same level of care, and we can't get to them unless we're productive. So where would you want to start? You know, this is your conversation to lead today for the data piece around this, but maybe like, what are the biggest questions that you're getting out in the space today? Like, where are the common pain points?
Totally. I think the most common pain point when it comes to productivity is, and I'm going to get on another soapbox here, man. You should know
you got
by
a long
now.
list of soapboxes, don't you?
I'm going to start a soapbox company, man. I don't know who buys those anymore, but yeah, you buy. I'll sell you share for cheap, man. It'll be good.
Sounds good.
But I think productivity is by far the most tangible, indicative way of administration showing sterile processing, I don't understand you. So when we look at how productivity is tracked, right? I don't know what studies have been done around this. You know, maybe this is something Beyond Clean would be interested in taking on. I think it would be impactful to know how many operating rooms dictate productivity for sterile processing across the country. Because it seems, and this is just me talking, right? I don't have data to back this up, but it feels like 40 to 50% of hospitals' SPD productivity is based off of OR hour. So that's making a bunch of really dangerous assumptions, right? That means that all cases are created equal. That means that there's no differences in specialty type of instrumentation. That means there's nothing else sterile processing is responsible for but putting up trays and getting them to the right room on time, all of which are false statements, right? So without data and a way to capture that data that can prove, hey, you know, a total knee and hip tray is actually like way more resource intensive for sterile processing than a cataracts procedure, right? From an administration perspective, it's one case, it's one tray. That's what sterile processing is doing. Does that answer your question, Hank?
It does. You know, one of the curious things about, again, you know, going back to the concept of big data is we're not just operating off of one data point, right? It's not just case volume, it's not just case hours, it's not even just instruments sterilized, right? If you pick one number, you're always going to be leaving out all of these other inputs that also tell the rest of the story. So, you know, one of those stories to kind of align us with what's going on in the space today is the staffing crisis and the staffing shortage. And the idea that one sterile processing body is equal to one sterile processing body. You kind of gave that example of how, you know, one cryo clamp is like another cryo clamp, but in SPD, we know intuitively that, hey, a brand new tech is not going to be as productive as maybe a 20-year tech. But as far as HR is concerned, if you've got a headcount of 30 people and you're doing this many worked hours, you should be doing this many trays. So tell me how big data can help clarify those assumptions for HR and our C-suite, if you would.
Yeah, exactly. I think it can do a variety of different things, from ensuring that we understand the differences in procedure types when it comes to informing like a growth strategy, right? We've been talking a lot today about how there's a huge reliance on total knee and hips because they pay really well, right? Well, in order to do knee and hip, the resource, it's like 150% more resources than your average case, right? So in order to, put up 12 to 24 trays versus 1 or 2 trays per case, that's a pretty big deal, right? So just understanding, hey, not only is there a higher volume, but the trays are more complicated themselves, that's one way. I think the second way is understanding how many non-productive tasks sterile processing is responsible for. I'm talking about things yeah, I like your example, like sterilized. If sterilized products is the way that we're tracking productivity, what about everything that sterile processing does that has nothing to do with sterilization, right? How many metavators did you do today, right? How many sterilized products is that? How many peel packs did you do today? Is that one sterilized product, or is that 10, 10 peel packs equal to one tray? What's your metric for that, right? So establishing again the concept of being able to capture the current state, let alone make a decision off of it. We're not even at the point where we're capturing the current state. Most administrators have no idea what sterile processing is responsible for outside of decon, assembly, and sterilization, if they even understand that component, right? So, and any one of those pieces, would bring a hospital to its knees, like if you didn't have metavators that were up, ready to go.
Yeah, you brought this up a couple of episodes ago. I think you threw out the word predictability. And, in this productivity conversation, to pull in another example, very common in the space, your facility is bringing on a new surgeon. Super excited. Hey, we got this new robotic surgeon, or just recruited this new heart surgeon, or bringing on like 2 new orthopedic surgeons. Never in my life as a sterile processing manager director have I ever heard tied into that conversation. And because of the increased volume that they're going to be bringing, we're going to be giving you some more staffing for resources. It's like doesn't even enter into the conception of what's going on. And yet we know that each one of these surgeons, with every piece of increasing volume, is going to have an impact on sterile processing. But again, without the data, we can't even have that conversation. So typically what happens is the surgeons come, and then we start filling that volume for the next 6, 12 months. And then we're like, we can't keep up, and everyone's scrambling. So how can data help to not only preempt, that specific scenario, but how can we look forward in the changes that are happening in the OR and actually help to staff sterile processing better and smarter?
Totally. Well, we can absolutely minimize our risk of shortfall when it comes to meeting an increased OR demand if we actually understand where sterile processing is currently from a capacity, equipment, and staff perspective. So we have a really fantastic program called the Process Ready Analysis, which does exactly that. And this is not a plug for that program, but one really cool thing the program does do is understand from a data perspective, right? So leveraging scheduling data, we know when work is leaving the operating room, so cases are closing, and the operating room becomes the generator of work for sterile processing, which is very different than when that case is starting, right? So understanding how to staff against the peaks and valleys of when work is actually hitting sterile processing versus using a data point, which may not be accurate, which is a theme here in healthcare, right? Case start time doesn't matter. If you have, 4 cases starting at the same time and a bunch of staff, waiting ready to go, they're going to be standing around with nothing to do until they get slammed when all those case cards come down to decon at the same time in 2 hours, right? So from, I guess, like an alignment perspective, being able to predict when these workflows are coming can drastically improve utilization of existing staff and also help us understand really what staff we do need from a justification standpoint. From a tribal knowledge perspective, more people has always been better because in the old way of doing things, or how things are still being done in some places, unfortunately, redundancy is built into the process. But what we're offering here with a reliance on data is an opportunity to get away from that redundancy, streamline the process, and use predictive indexing and analysis to understand, hey, if we grow orthopedics by 7%, specifically totals, and maybe we'll add on new robot, what exactly do we need from a resource perspective to make sure that we meet that OR demand to prevent canceled cases or delayed cases or poor patient outcomes? But also, make sure that we can provide, the regulatory compliance from the sterile processing side and do the things we need to do in SPD, like function checking and, CEUs and competencies, so we can have a good, retainment of assets and we can, make sure that we're taking care of our equipment to get a better ROI for that stuff on the back end. So, from a predictability perspective, this stuff is all connected, man. We just have no, or I guess until now, in this in the PRA, the process ready analysis program, we're making decisions on these in a vacuum, right? But to be able to connect all these things together and understand, hey, how does, changing my staff schedule this way and adding this case impact, our ability to provide a good service to the OR next week? Those are questions that we can answer now, thanks to data.
Yeah, it's an exciting time to be in sterile processing, to be thinking about sterile processing data and thinking about perioperative data. I know, on the road, at the time of the filming of this series, it's kind of fantasy football season, right? Everyone's picking all their teams. You got all these analytics about these players. And in the future, I know we're going to have the capability to drill down to our technicians and build our staffing team again, that we're not treating everyone like a wide receiver. Depending on the volume or the specialty or their skill set, they're not all as quick as Johnny is in decontam. Well, why on the busiest day are we not having Johnny in decontam if we can deploy with the data to build our team the same way that we would build, fantasy footballs or anything else? So it's really limitless possibility once you have the information and the analytics to surface those insights that you referenced before. Because, data is one thing, but being able to interpret and deploy that strategically and thoughtfully, like you brought up, I think is really the cherry on top. So great series, Kyle. Thank you so much for just opening up your head, cracking your skull open and just letting all your ideas pour out here for us on this series. As I said on the last video, we're going to have your contact information in the description so folks can reach out if they have more questions, because we just scratched the surface in every single one of these topics. I almost feel like I'm doing a disservice to the topics. But, the spirit of this series is really just to introduce folks to get them primed that there are folks out there like you that are just nerding out about this, really excited, and looking forward to bringing those solutions into the market. So, thank you for your time.
Absolutely. It's been an honor to be here. I know that the outreach for sterile processing has been limited until Beyond Clean. So, empowerment of a group of people who's integral, not just to hospital making money and, putting trays up, but, protecting and saving patients' lives is just that's just super cool, man. So it's a great platform, and I'm very happy to be a part of it.
Well, I'm going to give Kyle the last word and let you remind folks what they need to be doing on a regular basis.
Keep fighting dirty.
Good night, everyone.